Welcome to TeenSafe. My name is Dr. John Knight. I'm a pediatrician and the founder and director of the Center for Adolescent Substance Abuse Research at Children's Hospital Boston. My career changed in 1998 because of a teenager named Ryan Whitney, a boy I had watched grow up in my neighborhood. One summer night, Ryan went drinking with a few friends, and the evening ended tragically. The purpose of TeenSafe is to give you information that will help you prevent a similar tragedy in your family. This information is based on the latest neuroscience and developmental, behavioral, and psychosocial research. First, I invite you to view Ryan's story as told by his parents, my friends, Dick and Karen Whitney.
Ryan was a really interesting, charismatic young man, handsome, towhead blonde, great athlete, always kind of in sports all along, was really on the smaller size, but made up for it with his really fiery personality and great natural skills. People liked to be around him. He was a lot of fun. He really had a love of life, and people were attracted to that. Ryan had many, many friends.
Even teachers loved Ryan. He was really exciting to be around, and he was a leader, and people would follow him. And we used to call him the Pied Piper.
Despite all the positive things he had going for him, he was a little bit insecure, a little scared about the future. As school became harder and he had to work, at kind of a more disciplined pace, he eventually ended up losing his eligibility to play sports. Ended up having more free time than he needed or could really work well with, and all of a sudden alcohol sort of came into the picture to fill part of that void.
I always sort of was in denial because I thought, well, they're too young to buy liquor. How can they get it? But they found ways, and he didn't have a part-time job. He wasn't doing sports. He wasn't doing a lot of extracurricular activities. So it's idle time. In idle time, you can get yourself into trouble. Ryan was at the quarries that day, probably swimming. He was with 5 or 6 other kids, and they probably were drinking. That led to slipping into off the quarries. Ryan disappeared. They weren't quite sure where he went, and no one really heard the splash. But he was found. That was an incredible time to have to go to a cemetery to pick out your plot, to have to go to the funeral home to pick out a casket for your child. That was incredibly difficult.
Like all parents, we probably maybe underestimated it a bit, but alcohol became a bigger part of his life, and I think unfortunately alcohol caught Ryan at a time in his life where he was kind of vulnerable.
I think the one thing that I want to leave today with is that this can happen to any family. It doesn't matter who you are. We never thought it would happen to us, but it did. And I just don't want to see it happen to anyone else.